Nick Saban and Alabama have cleared the way for Maurice Smith to transfer within the SEC. His mother confirms to the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, first reported by the Tuscaloosa News. Smith will have to be granted a waiver from the SEC, which has restrictions on athletes with less than 2 years of eligibility remaining transferring to league schools, including graduate transfers. Smith graduated earlier this month. His mother, Samira Smith, cautioned the Maurice that his battle is not over, but told the AJC a decision from the conference is expected within the next 24 hours. Stephen A., does this make Nick Saban look any better?
I think it does. But before I get into that, we were talking about basketball a little while ago. I was talking so fast. The Warriors were the last team just a couple of years ago that won it without any guys, any champions on their roster. So let's point that out. Let me get back to this. I think Nick Saban looks good because he had no choice. Now, some would say that wouldn't make you look good because you relented to public pressure. Yep. You know, Maurice Smith graduated from your school. He wanted to transfer. You were leaning on the SEC rule you use that as an excuse so you didn't have to grant him the transfer or allow, you know, or get lax with the rules to allow the transfer to take place. Now it's in the hands of the SEC. It seems to me like the SEC uses the coaches and say, because it does say that the coach can make the exception. Then the SEC has to waive its process. So the coach leads on the SEC conference as an excuse. The SEC leads on the coach as an excuse. And the athlete is the one that gets screwed over because you're the one that's powerless in all of this. I have a problem with that. The fact that Nick Saban just shoved that aside and let it go, I think it's wise. The man graduated. He was a student athlete. He went to school. He got his grades. He got his education. And now he should have the freedom to do what he wants to do. And there's no way in hell that you should hold him back from doing that. Nick Saban looked petty is all hell in that regard. He deserved to be called out nationally about it. And I'm glad that he saw the error of his ways. And I think that other people are going to look at somebody as stoic, as rigid, as firm, and as convicted as Nick Saban, recognizing that he still found it within himself to correct what obviously we perceive as an error. I think that makes him look very, very big, as big as he is, and I applaud him for it. But I wanted to use this segment, Max, to take this to another level. I'm actually of the belief and the mindset that the government should get involved with this situation involving the SEC. The fact that the SEC still has this rule in place that prohibits a player from transferring from one school to another with less than 2 years eligibility and all that, that's a bunch of crap. Here's the reality. Kirby Smart was the defensive coordinator in Alabama for 8 years. He can leave and go to a school within the same conference, which is Georgia, sign a 6-year, $3.75 million per year contract, but a player can't leave. There is something very un-American about that. Okay, I can sit up there and I can talk to the high heavens or whatever. I'm a proud black man, but I'm an American. I can talk about all of that. I love this nation of ours. I love this country. And the fact of the matter is that in the United States of America, the fact that a football conference, with all the exploitative measures that they already exercise, not paying the student athlete, collecting money, knowing that their products, knowing that that they have value, but treating them like amateurs, justifying not paying them, doing all of these things, that's egregious enough. We've been talking about it to the point where you have even coaches who have come out publicly and say whether it's a stipend or something, we've got to do something to compensate these players, because they even recognize with the billions being poured into college football, you have to figure out a way to pay these guys. But this goes further than this. The fact that an SEC, that any conference, anywhere, can literally sit there and prohibit a kid from transferring to a school when the coach can do it. There is something incredibly un-American about it. If Maurice Smith can't be granted a waiver by the SEC and be allowed to transfer to Georgia, why is Kirby Smart allowed to be the head coach at Georgia? I don't have a problem with Kirby Smart going to Georgia. I think a grown man should be allowed to go where he wants. I think if you're a kid over 18 years of age, you get to serve your country. You can put your life on the line. You can die for your country. But you can't transfer to a school because of some bogus rule that's in place. It needs to stop. I believe that I believe our government, Congress, should get involved. And I think that somehow, some way, the SEC should be forced to change its rules. You want to transfer to an SEC school, if you got to sit out a year or something, so be it, all right? But if a coach can go and take a job in the same conference, a player should be allowed to as well. It is un-American to deny this man or any player an opportunity to transfer to another school just because they're in the same conference.
I think what you're talking about, because I had the same thought, is a legal challenge of some kind.
Yes.
It's unfair and maybe illegal. I don't know if it can be, you know, at some point it'll be challenged and hopefully changed. I agree with that. I want to get back to Nick Saban here.
Sure.
Does this make him look better? The answer is no, because he was publicly shamed into finally doing the right thing. Look, Nick Saban is the greatest living college football coach and arguably the greatest college football coach who ever lived. Who doesn't have a lot of respect for him as a football coach? But here, he is being a bully and worse, because he is using a kid's life and the choices that kid makes now and the direction that his life will take as a pawn in a power struggle with Kirby Smart, with his former defensive coordinator. I mean, that's what's really happening here. He's having a tiff with Kirby Smart. There, you know, SEC thing.
Clearly.
And he's using this kid as a pawn, but this kid has a life. And when Nick Saban says, I don't think it's in this kid's best interest, who are you to make? First of all, he's graduated. Secondly, that's his choice to make. Whether or not it's in his best interest, coach, that's not your choice, except that it is your choice because you are so empowered by the unfair and maybe illegal rules in college football. But just because you have that power doesn't mean you should exercise it in this way. In fact, once you're given that power, as Uncle Ben and Spider-Man said, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yep.
I mean, really, you're given that power.
You really do watch your movies, don't you?
Well, on the plane, I have nothing. That's when I catch all the movies.
I think it's in the
got
Bible
three little
too,
kids. I haven't been to a movie in 2 years, but I see them on the plane. The point is that you have that responsibility. Partly you're entrusted with that responsibility because you're expected to behave like an adult, not like a child with a shiny toy that he doesn't want to share with someone else. It's outrageous. Nick Saban here, again, maybe the greatest college football coach of all time, a brilliant, hard-working guy. I understand that. But here, this is the corrupting nature of power. He is too empowered. He's abusing the power. He's using a kid's life as a pawn. And the fact that he would do that and make the comment, I think it's in his best interest, as though this kid who's now graduated college doesn't know what's in his best interest or shouldn't have the right to act on it, is outrageous.
Yeah, but the flip side to it is that even though you're a little bit late to the party, you still got to the party. And I give Nick Saban credit for that. He deserves credit for that, number one. Number two, as a leader of young men, by and large, he has, I don't want to say a flawless record because we know it's not flawless, but it's pretty damn impeccable. And when you look at it from that perspective, I'm not going to get on Nick Saban for questioning whether or not something is best for the kid, because one of the reasons that parents allow their kids to go to a program is because the coach there has given you the impression that he will make decisions best for the kids. Ergo, you're giving him the license to think like that as a college coach. Now, if you're a grown man, that's different. But when you're a kid and you're evolving, a coach has the right to have the opinion that something may or may not be in the best interest of the kid.
But not when he's exercising his power over you.
I understand that.
After you've graduated.
Well, wait a minute. But that's where we get into government intervention. Because if you're Nick Saban, why should you not have power that the SEC has and has also granted you? Why should they have the power? The power could be completely stripped and eviscerated from them. But also, while we're talking about this, let's not give Kirby Smart a pass. I respect him. I think that he's going to do a good job. I'm glad he got the job at Georgia. I don't know Kirby Smart from a can of paint. I don't know him. But what I'm saying is this. With that kid Turbin, not only did you not allow him to go to another SEC school, you didn't want him to go to Miami, or Georgia Tech, because Georgia Tech was a competitor down the road from Athens, Georgia. Who are you to make that call? So even though he's trying to cover himself by saying, oh, if a kid graduated, I certainly would have held it back. Kirby Smart holds firm to the belief that Nick Saban had and the other SEC coaches had. None of them are innocent in all of this. The SEC is the main culprit in all of this. And I think Congress should get involved in forcing them to eradicate that rule immediately, because it is un-American.
You talk about hypocrisy and point out Kirby Smart going to Georgia. Okay, what about Nick Saban? Now, I understand it's not directly from LSU to Alabama, but Nick Saban was the head coach at LSU. He took an NFL job and then winds up at Alabama. That's not only the SEC, that's the Western Division. I mean, don't give me a whole song and dance about it.
No, and that's what you were saying.
This guy goes, this coach who's stopping a kid from doing what he wants, exercised his right to choose a job in the same division in the SEC and get paid millions for it.
Right.
It's a double standard.
Has the gall to talk about what's best for this kid.
Well, again,
who's
like
again
I said,
graduated
like
school.
I said, it's perfectly within his right to do it. We don't like it because it pertains to this rule. But by and large,
of his right.
It's a little abuse of it, which is why I applaud him for correcting himself. I've got somebody that, you know, really teaches me and has taught me a lot over the years about collective bargaining and beyond. He just texted me and said it's called restraint of trade.
Yeah, restraint of trade.
It's part of the challenges before the courts at the core of the current antitrust cases against the NCAA. So I'm calling for government intervention. Obviously, the NCAA can do something to influence the SEC, but I think overall, because of the hypocrisy of the NCAA and the conferences which fall under their purview, I think it calls for government intervention to force their hand to change the rules.
It would be likely happen through the courts, but if you're the NCAA, be smart about this. Instead of having this forced upon you, which will ultimately lead to the NCAA dissolving. I mean, who knows what the impact is? Get out ahead of it. Stop being so abusive of your power. Stop having rules that are unfair and perhaps illegal. Because when they are challenged and you lose, you're going to be in a much worse place than if you simply do it now yourself.
Of course, and the bottom line, coaches can do it and players should be able to too. So we'll see if anything evolves with that rule. When we come